Hey guys, it's Jack here, and thank you so much for joining us on this two-part special retrospective of Tim Burton's Batman duology. But before we get started, a few shoutouts that help make these two-part episodes possible. First off, a major thank you to the entire cast and crew of both productions, including the wonderfully talented AMETHYST Cosplay. If you guys want to go follow her work, link down below to her Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms. And of course, all of you on Patreon who helped fund this episode and made it possible. If you guys want to donate to the channel, just $1 or more will get you access to all of our content, as well as other special features. And as a special new addition, if you donate $100, you can get a BigJackFilms review of your choosing. We've already done one for An American Tale, so we're open to any requests. But on top of that, we got a convention coming up. If you guys want to meet us, you can check us out at Anime North at the Toronto Congress Center, July 15th to the 17th, 2022. Tickets are on sale now, link in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and enjoy the show. Now with that said, back to the Big Jack Cave! Ow! Ow! Why does that keep happening?! The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. Batman is owned by Warner Bros. Pictures, DC Comics, Peter Guberg, and Tim Burton. Please support the official release and streaming services. I gotta run to the bar, because I got a date with the circus.
Oh, Jesus! Stupid bats, you're ruining date night! Jesus Christ, like, what have I done? Pussies.
Pussy? Are you fucking kidding me? What are you even seeing that guy? There's so many tattoos on him, he can pass off as a Pirates of the Caribbean wannabe!
The invasion can proceed faster. I have already ordered our allies of the Great Worlds to start up their battalions.
I couldn't do the reviews I wanted to do this year due to the virus and the current surges in our systems. Think it's worth a try trying to reach him from here? Come on, old Batsy. Don't let me down. I know you're out there. The last of the power cells. It's our only chance.
There is no trace of Patient 92's whereabouts.
He is not to be underestimated.
Because the power cells are unlimited supplies, getting to Unit 205 is our only hope.
Actually, you might have someone who can help with that.
That's the universe codes to...
Yeah, he might be able to use technology to make replicas of the power cells to get where you need to go faster.
You're an idiot, Brad! But Noble!
Got one shot at this, don't fuck it up.
Wow. Finally made it. Gotham City. It's been a while since I stepped in this town. Now I just need to figure out where the hell he's at. I should probably ask around. Ah, fuck it, with a pun facility like that, I know just the gal who might be in there to help me. Oh, just Diet Coke, darling. I don't wish to attract attention.
I haven't seen you in 6 years. What's been the holdup?
Let's just say I'm going through a bit of an infinite crisis.
Beats Flashpoint.
Flash what?
I'ma get your drink left.
Good evening, I am Tommy Lee D. Williams, and welcome to tonight's edition of Gotham 89 News. And we begin tonight with the economy in full bloom here at Gotham City, as many small-time tech companies are taking advantage of a new set of open tech left over recently by Wayne Enterprises, giving Metropolis' own LexCorp a run for its money. We are also following the latest of the recent disappearance of former district attorney Harvey Dent and his terrifying alter ego Two-Face. Calls to bring in the rarer appearance of the mysterious Batman have been commissioned to Gotham PD, but the department had no comment on the matter. Both of their fates remain unknown, a presence felt in the darkest nights of Gotham City.
Your Diet Coke, Puddin'?
Oh, thanks. How long have they been reporting his absence?
Ever since the last Crook bust. Some sightings here and there, but nothing significant.
Still talking to your ex?
I played my last card with that bozo. Been running this joint, hassle-free, ever since. 2 years now.
I'm happy for you.
Thanks. But, you gonna be okay, kiddo?
I'll be fine. I never said I was sorry.
For what?
It didn't work out.
You just keep smiling for me, Kate.
Okay. What the hell happened to you, my night-winged friend? Oh, hey guys, it's BigJackFilms here, and it's hard to believe that in 30 years we've had so many comic book movies and superhero flicks dominate the box office. Okay, well, it's more than that, technically. I mean, superheroes on the motion picture screen have been a staple since the 1930s, but regardless in terms of big-budget blockbusters like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or in this case the multiverse, the genre has evolved from the early days of their conception since the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, which proved that comic book movies could be taken seriously with a serious approach in Hollywood. And to be perfectly honest, yeah, I love superhero movies. They're pretty much the westerns of the modern age, and it looks like they won't be out of touch anytime soon. Now, I do have my fair share of favorites, like Spider-Man, Superman, and the Avengers once in a while, but that's all they really are, favorites. Hell, even Zorro I consider to be one of my favorites, and that fucker was the first, being over 100 years old at this point with the Mark of Zorro in 1920. Where the hell is his big-budget reboot for his anniversary? I'm looking at you, Sony. You missed out on something big. Well, it probably comes to no surprise to anyone that my taste in superheroes mostly goes for the more realistic approach. And who better to portray that than the hero of my childhood, and actually of recent years, with the mythical Dark Knight simply known as the Batman. Created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger in 1939, the Batman made his first appearance in Detective Comics number 27, and was inspired from many films and historical figures, from Zorro, the Bat, and even the works of the great Leonardo da Vinci. And for over 80 years, the mythical Dark Knight and his vast number of sidekicks and rogues galleries have been one of the most successful pieces of literature in the 20th centuries. In the early days of Batman on the motion picture screen and on television, he was aimed at a much younger audience, with him and the boy wonder Robin, from the old 1940s serials starring Lewis Wilson and Robert Lowry, to the groundbreaking 1966 television series starring the legendary Adam West and Burt Ward. However, for the Cape Crusaders creators, they weren't too keen on Batman being labeled as a campy comedy for children. The creators of Batman, when they first started, labeled him as a dark, brooding vigilante who took the justice of Gotham City into his own hands as revenge for the death of his parents, which led to some pretty serious dark subjects not aimed at children. But in
1989, the Cape Crusader took a 360 bat turn back to basics with the first big-budget film adaptation of the classic character that took the character back to his original dark tone of his first appearance in the DC Comics 80 years ago. A film that has entertained and gained a powerful fan base of both filmgoers and comic book lovers as the movie that sparked the superhero genre for 3 solid decades with an all-star cast and an odd but talented new director. I am of course talking about the 1989 Hollywood cinematic classic simply known as Batman.
The story, of course, takes place in the 1930s, late 80s Gotham City. It's a dark and dangerous town, only protected by a mostly corrupted police department. Heh, kinda sounds like today. It really is the roaring golden age. Despite the best efforts of District Attorney Harvey Dent, played by Lando Calrissian himself, Billy D. Williams, and Police Commissioner Jim Gordon, played by Pat Hingle, the city becomes increasingly unsafe with crime and control from the mobs of the underworld. Until rumors surface of a mythical Dark Knight arises with the appearance of the Batman, who wages war with Gotham's underworld as the criminals become more and more scared to come out of the shadows as the police keep it quiet from the press, including the snooping reporter Alexander Knox, played by Robert Wuhl. But behind the masked bat is the charming yet quiet billionaire Bruce Wayne, played by Michael Keaton, who spends his daytime hosting parties and mostly chilling in Wayne Manor with his faithful butler Alfred, played by Dr. Decker of the King Kong ripoff Konga, Michael Goff. However, Vicki Dale, played by Kim Basinger, is a prize-winning photojournalist who wants to uncover the secret of the mysterious Batman and even ends up in a romantic relationship with Bruce Wayne. However, in Gotham's underworld, Jack Napier, played by Jack Nicholson, is the one-time enforcer for the head of Axis Chemicals' Boss Grissom, played by Jack Palance, but is ratted out for having a secret affair with Grissom's wife. Although when Batman enters the scene, Jack is horribly disfigured after a firefight in a chemical factory, who, devoid of the last efforts of sanity, seizes control of Gotham's underworld as the psychotic, unpredictable clown prince of crime, the Joker. And with Gotham at the clown's mercy, their only hope, it seems, lies with the Dark Knight himself, who discovers that the Joker is linked to a dark secret in Batman's past. So, what are my thoughts on the first big-budget Hollywood adaptation of the Batman? Aside from the 1966 film. The short version, I love it. It's definitely one of the best Batman movies to date and still holds up over 30 years later. And considering how many incarnations have come after for better or for worse, that's saying a lot. But it's hard to believe how difficult it was to get the film off the ground after 10 years of development hell. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at a little Bat history. Back in the 1970s, at the time of the early stages of Batman's concept, the only commonly known adaptation of The Dark Knight was the campy Adam West TV series, which was still haunting the creators of Batman and Hollywood itself from making any other adaptations. Sure, there was Batman the movie in 1966, but the camp and comedy continued to linger even when this movie was in pre-production in the 80s. But by the time Superman the movie rolled around in 1978 and became a blockbuster hit for Warner Brothers, it seemed obvious that Batman was the next DC hero to bring to the silver screen. The project passed along to the likes of Universal and United Artists, but they both passed on the project. Huh, that sounds oddly familiar to another big blockbuster hit 10 years prior. It's also funny on Universal's end, given they planned a potential Batman theme park-based area in the early stages of Islands of Adventure in the 90s, which wouldn't be fully realized until the infamous Batman roller coasters at Six Flags theme parks, among a few other awesome attractions. But back to the movie. By the time the project was a go for Warner Brothers in 1979, it took almost 10 years to get off the ground, with several scripts and drafts passed around, including one from the writers of Superman the movie. But at the time, the biggest problem in the concept phase was the tone of the film. Would it be a comedy starring Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin? Yes, that was a real thing planned. Or a dark and serious tone based on the character's first appearance in 1939. Well, thankfully, dark and serious was the direct approach for the writers, thanks to the recent publishing of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, and Jim Sterling's A Death in the Family. Which, by the way, is still my all-time favorite Batman comic. Seriously, why do none of the live-action movies ever think to adapt this story? It's always Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, or even Nightfall. Come on, give Death in the Family a fair shake! Because of this dark change in the comics, the filmmakers made their decision to give the directing chair to someone young, but twistingly dark at the same time. Enter visionary gothic director Tim Burton, who at the time left Disney after making some early shorts, and got his first big film break with Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice. As Warner Brothers saw potential in the kid, they immediately gave him the job and did more reworkings in the script. And while the script is a little bit of a mess, the film overall gives us great dark gothic visuals, a simple yet brooding story, and a cast of characters from the DC comics that are all well portrayed in this first big adaptation. First, of course, being the legendary Dark Knight Batman and his alter ego Bruce Wayne. Now, many have debated this version, saying he's too quiet and introverted as Bruce Wayne, but overly violent and murderous as Batman. But to the character's defense, that's how he was in the original comics. Always mysterious and quiet, hiding his emotions and tragedy within the darkness and unleashing his true rage on the criminals he takes out. But to be fair, the film actually does portray it well. And yeah, I can agree with everyone else that this film not only made Michael Keaton a star...
You feel differently? No, I wouldn't guess you
I was following George Bush into the city, they kept going, Batman!
but also gave us one of the best portrayals of Batman on the big screen. However, prior to the film's release, that wasn't really the case. Keaton was cast right after Burton worked with him on Beetlejuice. And with other works on his resume, like Mr. Mom under his utility belt, the fans shat themselves with fear when Keaton was cast, thinking they were going back to the campy comedic Batman again, and they straight up hated it. And if you thought the waves of Twitter rants against Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson were bad, try fans protesting at the studio gates back in the day.
Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
But to put all the fears and the press to bed, the studio did put out some promotional material, including a roughly cut teaser trailer, and the fans' minds immediately changed to a much more positive light.
How do you think Michael Keaton's gonna be as Batman?
Oh, I can't wait. I love Michael Keaton. Sexy.
It's gonna be live. I'm gonna come see it.
But the only thing I could have changed about it was letting me play the babe.
Hell, the teaser was so popular, bootleg copies at conventions were selling at high prices. Pretty fucking stellar for the 1980s. And for Michael Keaton, it paid off immensely, because to this day, he's still one of the best actors to don the cape and cowl. Especially with his voice and iconic line that completely rebranded the character.
What are you? I'm Batman.
God damn it, is that line not fucking awesome?
I'm Batman.
Man, even in colleges he still got it. Anyway.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, get it, it's awesome. So, we'll get to you, Val.
I'm Batman.
Fuck off, Clooney.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman. Because I'm Batman.
Okay, holy annoying orange Batman, we get it. God, that line is as ingenious as the villain of this movie. Yep, there's no denying that the best thing, hands down, about this film is the legendary Jack Nicholson as Batman's greatest foe, the Joker.
Wait till they get a load of me.
And this is one of the best Hollywood villains in cinema history. From the beginning as Jack Napier, you could tell he's total bad news in Gotham City. And when he becomes the Joker, it's the opening of Pandora's box when he steps onto the scene with his iconic purple costume and permanent grin on his face. Before this film, the casual movie-going audience only saw a goofy clown as portrayed by Cesar Romero in the 60s TV series. But for most comic book fans, especially in the 70s and 80s, the Joker was much more of a psychopath force of nature, even killing Robin and paralyzing Batgirl in the classic graphic novels A Death in the Family and The Killing Joke. And it seems for the filmmakers, this is the Joker they wanted for the film. And at the time, many actors were rumored for the part, from Robin Williams to our delicious Tim Curry. Which, fun fact, Tim Curry almost played the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, but the studio felt he was too scary, probably due to the fact that he played Pennywise a few years prior.
Come on up, Richie. I got a balloon for you.
Hence why Mark Hamill was brought in at the 11th hour. However, for Tim Burton, and especially the producers, everyone's first decision was the Oscar-winning grin of Tinseltown Jack Nicholson, who even got top billing on the film, surpassing the title character.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
I don't know why this decision was made and why Jack Nicholson was the perfect candidate in terms of acting and looks, but either way, in Tim Burton's universe, it paid off, because Jack was a force of nature in this movie, ranging from loads of improvised gags to intimidating moments of madness.
I'm glad you did.
Every scene he steals the spotlight in the center ring of the circus. There are so many great moments with the Joker in this movie, I can't pick my favorites. On top of that, his scenes and the way of going about messing with Batman's head is straight up sadistic. From laughing off how he killed Batman's parents, spoiler alert, to stealing Batman's girl in the process. Jesus Christ, how sleazy can you get, Jack?
I make art until someone dies.
To this day, even in his retirement, Jack Nicholson has gone on record saying this is one of his favorite performances. And it's easy to see why. Because his Joker gave birth to one of the greatest villains of cinema and pop culture, and many other great incarnations that either surpassed him, or kind of fumbled.
The more you scare them, the more they like it. The worse you are, the better. Because that was my response to the Joker. I mean, after all, this is a hateful occurrence, this man. And if you looked at it literally, every kid loves this guy, I believe. And I particularly love just the name, Joker. It's fantastic.
Which brings us to the supporting characters, starting with the news reporter, Vicki Dale. And on a side note, it's kind of interesting how in the late 80s and early 90s, female news reporters in movies were the hot shit when it came to what boys were into back then. I mean, you could argue that Lois Lane was the beginning of this trend, but like April O'Neil? What the hell was the deal back then?
Yeah, listen, if you want me to pose nude, you're gonna need a long lens.
Well, simpler times aside, I gotta admit Kim Basinger was honestly quite sweet in this movie. She seemed like a motivational character to get behind. Yeah, she wants to cover the mystery of the Batman as most do, but she and Bruce Wayne do make a nice little couple. On top of that, yeah, she's not that bad looking. Although less can be said later with the likes of 50 Shades Darker, but we won't hold that against her. What is against her, however, is her constant screaming. I mean, seriously, it's like 25% of her dialogue in this movie. I mean, I'm not saying she's a wuss or anything. Hell, she can occasionally stand her own with the Joker. But if you thought Fay Wray was bad in Kong, Jesus Christ, can anyone stand this every 30 seconds? It makes me wonder if Sean Young would have been a better candidate the first time around, which she was until she fell off her horse. Kim was actually brought in at the last second. And to this day, much like Jack Nicholson, Basinger looks back on this performance as one of her best. And she often visited children's hospitals as Vicki Vale, which is actually pretty commendable.
I mean, they didn't know Kim Basinger, they knew Vicki Vale. I mean, some of these kids were absolutely in shock, and they would ask me, where is Batman? Straight faces, where is Batman? I said, well, he's parked outside. Is he in the Batmobile? I said, well, they wouldn't really let him park it here at the hospital.
In fact, to be honest, one of the weaker aspects in the film is that the majority of the supporting characters feel a little outdated and kind of weak, honestly. But there are a lot of positives, of course. Honestly, despite Michael Caine and other actors portraying Alfred are better when it comes to characteristics, Michael Gough will always be the definitive Alfred for me, for his kind, gentle, and wise manner of character. He's very much a supportive friend and more of a grandfather figure to Bruce Wayne, and mix that with his good comedic timing and words of wisdom, and you have a very gentlemantic Alfred in this movie. Hell, his Alfred arguably has the best Diet Coke commercial of all time.
Just for the taste of it, Diet Coke.
I'd highly recommend looking this commercial up on YouTube or digging out the old VHS for shits and giggles, because it's a nostalgia trip and a half.
We seem to be down to our last Diet Coke. A gentleman is on his way to pick some up.
Despite me wondering why the hell would Batman take the Batmobile, which costs hundreds of thousands if not millions of dollars to run a night, and take it to a corner store to get Diet Coke? Really wonder what that scenario was actually like for him.
Yeah, just a case of Diet Coke, sir. It's not for me, it's for, my butler. I, started to drink Diet Coke, but I mostly go for the regular stuff. Look, my butler has a severe colon problem. It's half the reason why he's clogging up the toilets in the Batcave. Well, you know, they don't call him the butler for nothing. That's a bat slapper.
That'll be $4.25.
Yeah, that'll just be on the back credit card. Never leave the cave without it. And that's only because I don't have any real money.
Sir, we don't take those.
I'm kind of a tax fraud.
I don't even know what the hell that thing is.
Why do I even bother? Alfred, put some money on the Bat credit card.
Sir, you have $1 billion in your name.
I don't give two shits if it comes from your bank account. I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman. Just for the taste of it, Diet Coke!
Now, unfortunately, as much as Pat Hingle does a fair job with Commissioner Gordon, he's not really given much to do in the script. And that's a shame, given next to the likes of Robin, among others, is one of Batman's greatest supporters. And that's not the fault of Pat Hingle. He tried his best with the material. But it feels like they mixed Commissioner Gordon with the physical and comedic attributes of something like Chief O'Hara, which really would later come into play in the Schumacher films.
You're way too old for me.
No, I'm not. Please, come back.
And I really want to apologize.
Yeah, sorry, I just don't see Rooter as Commissioner Gordon. Yeah, actually, fun fact, Pat Hingle voiced Rooter in The Land Before Time. Bet you guys didn't know that that dinosaur was secretly a Gotham City police commissioner.
Oh my god.
In fact, the main head of the police, who is pretty down to earth, is actually District Attorney Harvey Dent, and Billy D. Williams, for what he's given, is actually doing a really good job as Gotham's White Knight. Despite the fact that he seems like a small build-up to his eventual portrayal of Two-Face for the later sequels, which unfortunately didn't happen. Not till much later with the miniseries comic Batman 89, which I would highly recommend if you want to see what a third Tim Burton Batman movie would have looked like. Other characters like Alexander Knox, Eckhart played by Porkins from Star Wars,
Think about the future.
Carl Grissom, and even Bob Lagoon, while each one of them have great moments, are just there for background to fill in the massive set of Gotham City, which in this film were shot in the backlots of London, England, and look spectacular. So much detail went into making this world a dark and dirty town to give the environment of a corrupt, crime-driven city. Something that would later come into play into more recent adaptations of Batman on film, with Todd Phillips' Joker and even Matt Reeves' The Batman. But for the majority of the wide-scale shots of Gotham, they were visualized using the vast amount of matte paintings, and they look fantastic, giving the film an Oscar for Best Production Design in 1990. With that said, another set of icons in this film are Batman's suit and his variety of gadgets and vehicles to fight crime. The Batsuit itself, for the first big-budget Hollywood adaptation, looks incredible, and the rubber gives it a feel that this guy is straight-up bulletproof. Not to mention, it looks like it's been through the ringer. I know it's probably due to the fact that the whole suit is made of latex rubber, and every time they shot it, it slowly deteriorated over time, but it also adds a bit of character to the suit, making it look like Batman has been fighting this war on Gotham for a few years now. The only minor issue is that the emblem is a little off-putting with its added-on wing spikes, especially given it doesn't really match the logo for Batman himself in the marketing and posters. But aside from that, everything from the belt, despite the logic being awkward of how it functions, the cowl, and the leather cape look fantastic on him, especially when he expands his wings jumping down from rooftops. The cape itself was actually made entirely out of latex using a giant round table to create the sculpture. But every time he expands his wings and just kicks ass, the suit looks fantastic, in both the camera angles and the low lighting to give Batman that dark, mysterious, shadowy look. During production, they made several copies of the Batsuit, because again, the latex would rot over time, and tons of these suits have made it onto Hollywood auctions and private memorabilia collectors. But just recently, one of the original first suits actually just got restored at the Warner Brothers Studios in California, and recently resides in one of their exhibits, which is actually pretty cool to see. 3 of Batman's best filmed traditions were even introduced in this movie, with the likes of the Bat Turn, which was due to the suit having no movable neck, the suit-up scene, which includes some close-ups of the belt buckling and Batman emblem, and of course, the iconic shots of Batman bursting down from a glass roof to save the day. A tradition that would last all the way up to Batman and Robin, be cheated on in Batman v Superman with a CGI model, plus that's a side window, not a roof, that doesn't count, and fully returning in Matt Reeves' The Batman, which actually made me cheer when I saw it in theaters recently. All of these traditions are as iconic as his 1989 Batmobile, which, holy shit, is one of the most famous movie cars in cinema history. Now, most fans of films and geekdom would want something like the DeLorean Time Machine, or KITT, or the Ecto-1, but if there's any car I'd want in my lifetime, it's this bad boy here. It's one of my all-time favorite cars, and it's also my favorite Batmobile in any of the movies, which in recent years have been going more for a tank feel than a fucking car. Once again, thank God for Matt Reeves bringing the Batmobile to a much more simpler design. Like seriously, Nolan, Snyder, I mean even Reeves, can we get some Batwings on the back for fuck's sakes? Actually, speaking of which, the Batwing itself is pretty damn awesome too. Flying around as a model, making it look much more practical and realistic. The original model still resides in a restaurant of Planet Hollywood in Times Square in New York City, as well as a mechanical model which was recently discovered. So for any Bat fans who want to see this iconic vehicle up close, I'd highly recommend checking it out in New York. The action scenes in this film are also a lot of fun, each one full of thrills and adventure. From beginning to end, you're having a bat blast. Literally, the opening scene of Batman fighting the two crooks on the roof is one of the best opening scenes in any of the movies, with some humorous dialogue.
I heard the bat got him. The bat? Oh man, give me a break, will you?
To the first visual appearance of Batman, keeping him mostly in the shadows. And as a hand-drawn cartoon.
Batman, Saturdays at 9 on Cartoon Network.
And again, that awesome line.
I'm Batman.
Iconic as hell. But there's more great action scenes. The fight in the chemical plant filled with shootouts, Nickelodeon slime, and one of my favorite shots in any of the Batman movies. Fucking dope. It's also pretty damn thrilling to watch, feeling like something out of an Alfred Hitchcock film. Hell, the scene where Batman tries to save Napier from the chemicals is pretty chilling to watch, especially with the close-ups of Batman, despite that shot being used in the opening of the film. Seriously, nobody ever brings that up. You could see in his eyes that he in some ways recognizes Jack as the potential man who killed his parents, and in a way actually decides to let him go, leaving him for dead. We'll get to Batman's kill count later. Also, these shots scared the shit out of me as a kid. And from the big epic climax of the film to the chase scene from the Gotham Art Museum are another great set of action scenes and perfectly capture the Hollywood adventures of the Dark Knight, even down to the music. Speaking of music, that brings us to the epic and dark score of the amazingly talented Danny Elfman, bringing him up to one of the greatest film composers in cinema with the likes of John Williams and many others. To me, as the film series passes from one generation to the next, Elfman's Batman theme is the definitive version and nails the title character perfectly. I know a lot of people enjoy the 60s theme, and I do too, but Elfman's is probably half the reason the darkness of the movie works so well. I mean, just listen to it. It's a perfect balance of dark and brooding mixed with the actions of a real hero to the people of Gotham as heroic and vengeful at the same time. Something that would later be passed on from Shirley Walker, Elliot Goldenthal, and most recently Michael Giacchino. I hope I'm pronouncing it right this time. There's so many iconic themes in this movie that I would love to share with you guys, but due to YouTube's heavy copyright systems at the moment, I can't really play too much of them, unfortunately.
We are not prepared to discuss any deals.
But you've probably heard a lot of this music in the LEGO Batman video games, and my only response to that is, shut up, you have this movie to thank for it. So for you young kids who grew up with the LEGO Batman games and the sets, which even I love, just watch this movie, it's that fucking awesome. And given it was the late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't without its video game adaptations. Now, while I haven't played the arcade game, which to be fair looks pretty fucking awesome, I do own Batman on NES, and to be fair, this is one of the best titles on the console. The game is upbeat, fast-paced, and brooding with dark atmosphere, much like the movie itself. The music, while not using the Danny Elfman track, have some pretty iconic themes in of themselves. It was one of the first successful movie licensed games, and has been regarded as one of the most iconic Batman games of all time. And that I can kind of agree on. It's a bit of a tough game to get through, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun. And getting to the Joker on top of the bell tower is pretty satisfying. Not to mention the 8-bit sprite of Batman has become somewhat of an iconic suit in of itself. The movie also got games on Game Boy, and even the recently released 60-bit game console, the Sega Genesis, which is a tad more rare. Overall, if you're a fan of Batman and retro gaming in general, I would recommend picking up and giving a playthrough. They're quite fun. They were just part of a much greater world, with the movie being a merchandising machine for the studio overnight, and the film was indeed a massive success. It was also the highest grossing film of 1989 and beat out all the other competition at the time, which was pretty fierce. From Ghostbusters 2, Back to the Future Part 2, and even Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I don't imagine the likes of Doc Brown being too happy about that outcome.
Think about the future.
It was downright brutal. It paid off immensely, making over $400 million on a $48 million budget. And for 1989, I could consider it a bat hit. The movie was so popular it gave birth to one of the greatest parody episodes in cartoons of all time, with Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Batmonk, which in of itself was sold on VHS, and I watched that tape religiously as a kid. Seriously, that episode's pretty fucking awesome. It's got a bat transformer and a cover of Danger Zone. It just fits so well.
Now, with so many great moments in this movie, you might be asking yourself if there's any problems with it. Well, to be frank, there are a few minor issues that come to mind as the film ages.
Well, for starters, the biggest issue with the film, like many have pointed out, is that story-wise, it's an overall mess. And that's no doubt due to so many scripts, concepts, and tone that went into the film's 10 years of development hell. Since its beginnings in 1979, the film had so many drafts written that the film's presentation comes off as a mix of writing and directing decisions along with studio intervention, as most of these early Batman films seem to suffer from. For example, some of the early drafts had the inclusion of Robin right away, but Burton and the studio were pretty solid not to have the Boy Wonder be part of this first adventure. Mostly given the film was an adaptation of the much more darker, grittier 80s Batman comics, and even to some extent Detective Comics number 27, in which Batman was solo for about a full year until Robin showed up in his first appearance in Detective Comics number 38. Another issue was the studio's interference in marketing the movie. Now, while most of this didn't happen until much later in post-production, the studio even during filming was pushing corporate sponsorship, with the likes of Nike creating Batman's boots, which, while highly unnoticeable, is a pretty cool Easter egg in terms of sponsorship, as well as cosplay replica tutorials. However, less can be said later on with the film's soundtrack. While Danny Elfman's score is the most iconic for Batman, Warner Brothers insisted on their biggest talent at the time, Prince, to create a few songs to be inserted into the film, given Prince's latest track, Purple Rain, was at the top of the charts in the music industry. Two of his tracks that were put into the movie were Party Man, in which the Joker and his minions vandalized the Gotham Art Museum, and the song Trust, where the Joker unleashes a deadly parade upon the crowd with millions of dollars, which turned out to be fake dollars with the Joker's face on it, going back to this line from the film.
What do you want?
My face on the $1 bill.
Which, while cut, was featured in the graphic novel adaptation of the film.
Gotham's green.
Now, while most can complain about the songs being outdated, to be honest, I actually don't mind them in this film. And hell, I'd say both are even kinda catchy. Especially Trust. I can't even tell you how many times I put that on my playlist once in a while. There were a ton of other songs that Prince wrote that, while didn't make it into the final film, became part of a companion album. But for the most part, they're the ones that actually stick out like a sore thumb. Like the Bat Dance. I don't get it.
And where is the Batman?
And going back to that, it even goes as far as to the vast amount of merchandising planted into the marketing. From the, to be fair, awesome Kenner action figures, the Batman breakfast cereal,
Oh, God.
And even one of the biggest sales of VHSs at the time, which surprisingly came out only a few short months after the movie's release, which pissed off a ton of small-time theater chains waiting for prints of the film to be shown later that summer. But it was actually just Warner Brothers trying to catch up with the film's popularity, along with making a decent holiday gift. And on top of that, VHS was relatively new in 1989, so those tapes went for quite the high price back in 1989. But nowadays, they're pretty damn common at local thrift shops.
Ratted out here, boys.
One of the biggest issues critics and the fans have with the film is of the two plot points that come off as lame and really stupid from a storytelling perspective. The first being that Alfred would just let Vicki Vale into the goddamn Batcave, which, honestly, if I was Batman, I'd be pretty damn livid with Alfred. Master Bruce, I thought I would bring Vicki Vale into the Batcave. Why? Just for the taste of it. Diet Coke! This decision was due to the fact that the production was wrapping up quite quickly than expected, so the writers had to put something hastily together to give the two lovers of the movie more time to grow. And yeah, in a way it kind of feels forced and a little unnecessary.
I plead innocent. Didn't do it.
However, the biggest problem that gives this film a bad reputation is the fact that the Joker is the one who kills Bruce Wayne's parents and changing the billionaire's fate to becoming Batman.
What? Huh. What are you talking about?
Which is just plain wrong from the lore of the comics. The true story of the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne is by way of a thug named Joe Chill who guns them down in an alleyway. Which, to be fair in of itself, has had many iterations of where the origins of Joe Chill came from.
Okay, this is a stick-up. I'll take that necklace you're wearing, lady.
Don't you dare lay a hand on my wife.
Maybe now you'll keep quiet.
Help, please! Help!
Ah, this will shut you up, sister.
They're dead. You killed them.
Hey, stop looking at me like that, kid. Stop looking at me.
You killed my mother and father. You.
Now, in the movie, that visual is presented, but to have the Joker do it changes the entire perspective of this incarnation of Batman, giving the Joker pretty much less time to develop in a long-time rivalry as Batman's greatest foe. Not to mention the fact that Joker dies, killing any chance of him returning for a future installment. This was mostly a series of concepts strictly created by Tim Burton himself, along with notes on changes to the climax during production after Jack Nicholson and some of the producers went to a showing of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, hence why it takes place at the top of a massive tower in a cathedral. However, surprisingly in my opinion for the Burton universe of Batman, I actually don't mind it and I can see why they changed it. You gotta remember folks that despite this film being a massive success, there was never any talk of franchising movies out with future sequels and spin-offs, as most movies do nowadays. In today's filmmaking world, there is always a setup for a follow-up with cliffhangers and post-credit scenes. But back in the golden age of Hollywood, most films had straightforward and contained stories, meaning some of the source material had to be condensed and wrapped up in a solo movie. So this change having the Joker kill Batman's parents was due to this factor, and in a way, it gives a different dynamic of rivalry between the hero and villain in the film. And in this movie, it actually works really well. And I think it's due to one of my favorite lines in any of the Batman movies.
You killed my parents. I was a kid when I killed your parents. When I say I made you, you gotta say you made me. I made you. You made me first.
That line alone from the Caped Crusader is chilling and epic, giving a full reason to see Batman do what he does best. Even when he's kicking the shit out of the Joker and unintentionally killing his goons. Yeah, I know people complain that Batman shouldn't be straight up murdering people in these movies, but really, that concept on film didn't really show up until the Dark Knight trilogy. And on top of that, in the early comics, Batman straight up had a gun at times, and in the first issue, he straight up fucking kills a man! Seriously, he pushes him off the roof in Detective Comics number 27! You're gonna tell me that Batman has never killed people? That's some straight Bat bullshit. But remember, remember that most of this and in the movie is from either self-defense or due to the buffoonery of the goons in his way. But whatever the case may be, Batman is still a badass and kicked his ass into stardom as the film, again, was a smash hit in 1989, and for the time, that's pretty damn badass. Not what I had in mind. Overall, Batman is a groundbreaking Hollywood blockbuster that still holds up over 30 years later, bringing to life the Caped Crusader in an exciting and dark way, filled with great action, a brutal tone, and an all-star cast bringing their full A-game to the first big motion picture of the iconic comic book character. And beyond it being a true Golden Age Hollywood classic, the film itself has left a legacy like no other, inspiring many of today's biggest superhero epics and giving the spotlight to the comic book genre as a mainstay in the popular culture. To this day, I still love this film and the impact it's left in the world at large of filmmaking and entertainment, and I'd highly recommend it if you're a Batman, comic book fan, or film goer in general, which gives it a high praising rate of an 8.9 out of 10. Yeah, while it does have some minor storytelling issues, it's still a fantastic film and is one of the best adaptations of my all-time favorite superhero.
And that's my retrospective review of Tim Burton's Batman. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd say check out the film when you have the chance. But of course, what's your take on Tim Burton's classic, and what's your all-time favorite Batman movie? Let me know in the comment section below. And since we got some spare time here in Gotham City, why don't we take a look at Tim Burton's underrated sequel and finish off the Batman duology. Tune in next time, and I'll tell you all about it.
What news of the escaped asset?
Forgive my puzzling absence, my lord, but it appears Mr. Hyde went rogue.
Any sign of him in Gotham? He knows of our plans. We cannot allow him to squeal.
My men are in search of him as we speak. His tracker tells us that he's off to the Gotham City Bank. Perhaps he is plotting a deposit for a devilish explosion of the city.
Or he wishes to lure the bat out of hiding.
Pardon my question, my lord, but the bat has rarely been seen recently.
Do not puzzle yourself, Mr. Enigma. The bat is still out there. I can feel it. If he does return, Gotham's underworld will be out of commission. Perhaps our prisoner may be of use to us. If he can bring the bat down on his own, the darkness will be as clear as daylight.
Like a bat, my lord.
Yes, my riddling friend. As blind as a bat. For I have someone with far more humor to deal with this rodent.
So, Broody Bat
has come out of hiding. In that case, it looks like the circus is back in town.
Oh, for commie's sakes, does he really have to be in every single one of these fucking things?
I'm contractually obligated, yes! It's actually a joke book.